Hello everyone, welcome back to the channel. This is the Redline Racing League. Sunday's Division 1 for a 60-minute race around Alsace Village. All three tire compounds must be used. That's racing super soft, soft, and the mediums. And this is 8 teams of 2 cars. Coming towards the grid, let's take a look at your starting lineup. On pole, in the first of the Vipers, it's Kale. In P2, his teammate, Ant. In third position, we've got RSX in an Aston Martin Vantage with P4, left rear puncture. Fifth position for the train of Astons is Timmy. In sixth position, the first of our Nissan GTRs, it's End. In seventh position, we've got Swordsman. In eighth, the first of the Jaguars, it's Evo Ant. In ninth position, his teammate, Scott Skynet. In 10th position, the first of the Lexus RCF, Big Ashy. 11th, we see Kevo 44. In 12th, in a Mitsubishi Lancer, it's Stoke. 13th position is Joker. In 14th position, we see Dan in a Nissan GTR. Dan's teammate, Damian Black, occupies position 15. And rounding out your grid today is AV in an Aston Martin Vantage. Alright, from the grid start with false check. Everyone seems to get away clean, heading towards turn 1. Kale gets a nice jump, having started on the racing super soft compound, and starting on the racing softs, bunches up the field a little bit, but for the most part, everyone gets away cleanly. As RSX goes for the move, taking hold of second position, but not for long. Left rear puncture, gonna challenge. Heading through these fast, sweeping turns of Alsace Village. As we head down the hill towards one of the slower sections. And left rear puncture, gonna go ahead and take second spot to lead the giant train. Their first time around, the sweeping banked turn. Kale has probably about a 2.5, almost a 3-second advantage already, as left rear puncture leads the way from RSX and Kevo. Now into the slow section. Going up the hill for the tricky left, right, left. We see that Swordsman's already dropped from the 7th starting position down to 15th. Different strategy playing out there. Rounding the final few turns to complete lap 1. It's Kale ahead of RSX, Kevo, left rear puncture. Once again, we've got some side-by-side action as left rear puncture actually dropped back to 4th position. RSX inherits 2nd ahead of Kevo. Kevo already with a nice jump from 11th on the grid up to the 3rd position. Another big mover, we see Damian Black in the Nissan GTR already advancing from 15th place into the top 5. Fabulous. Well done, mate. Just ahead of Timmy, Ant, and Joker rounding out the top 8. no, and unfortunately Timmy catches the grass and loses control of the car. That is certainly one of the more tricky turns, especially when you're running in a train of cars. It can be rather difficult to see the track limits. As Ant, who had a very good starting position in P2, unfortunately catching the grass, going a bit wide, and dropping back outside the top 10. Alright, cycling through here at the end of lap 2. Taking a look at Big Ashy, who gets a little bit squirrely coming downhill. And that's going to allow 10th through 16th to be close on his trails. Alright, here we are on lap 3. Kevo is now in P2 with a really good battle between Rex and Joker. Joker, who started all the way back in 13th in that Mitsubishi Lancer, is going to challenge for 3rd place. As we take a look at Calais, who has a substantial lead early on, riding on board with RSX, runs a little bit wide, which allows the duo of Damian Black and Dan, and those very coordinated CAT-sponsored Nissan GTRs, to get ahead. Running on board with Kevo, who actually slows down a bit to allow Joker to make the move. So perhaps early on, Kevo is just trying to maintain the tires and also trying to save a little bit of fuel by being in the slipstream of a driver in front. On board now with Stoke in P8, having a really good battle with left rear puncture for some side-by-side action. One of the great parts about this particular track is that it certainly invites for some awesome side-by-side action. So Stoke putting the pressure on left rear puncture just a bit. After all, it is in the early runnings of this race, so trying not to wear the tires out too much. Some slight contact there, but it's all fair play. Now heading into the very tricky, slow, 2nd gear right-hand turn. Very easy to upset the car. Now going uphill. Oof, and unfortunately left rear puncture catches a little bit of the curb on the inside, handing Stoke the position. We're at the first of our drivers to pit after just 5 laps, Evo Ant. Perhaps going for a little bit different of a strategy, filling up the tank all the way. Now we're on board with Dan, sitting in 4th position, already up 10 positions from the start as Kevo runs a bit wide, handing Dan the 3rd position. Running on board with Dan's teammate Damian Black, going to perhaps try and follow suit. Kevo's going to lift, which I believe was a wise decision heading into this slow section. It's always tricky trying to go too wide. After 7 laps, Timmy opts to come into the pits, perhaps switching off the super soft compound. Another driver in the pits is Scott Skynet. Right, end of lap 8. Swordsman right ahead of AV and Ant. Ant gonna go ahead and come into the pits as well. So because drivers have to use all 3 tire compounds, I found if you really nurse the tires, you could possibly get about 7 good, maybe 8 good laps out of the super soft compound. Anywhere from 8 to 10 laps on the soft compound. The medium compounds, although they will last a bit longer, were also quite a bit slower per lap. So for the most part, expect to see drivers being on the medium tires for 1 to maybe 5 laps at the maximum. Left rear puncture exiting the pits right ahead of Timmy in the battle for P10. As all the drivers are now starting to settle in, 10 laps here into the race. And one thing to keep an eye on is the bottom left-hand side of the screen. That is the timer. So about a third of the way into the race so far, Kale leads from Joker. Here at the end of lap 10, Dan is actually going to come into the pits, switching off from the soft compound, which he started on. Other drivers following suit include, so we've got Kevo, we've got Dan's teammate Damian Black. Damian Black also started on the racing soft compound. So some of these drivers trying to get the overcut on the other competitors who perhaps pitted lap 8, lap 9. "11 laps into this competition, and Kale continues to stay out." Interesting strategy going on there. Started on the racing super softs and just making them last. As Joker and Dan into the pits, Dan ended up only doing 1 lap on the mediums. Get that out of the way. As Swordsman hops up into 3rd position. Swordsman, who started in 7th position, dropped back to last at the very start on the soft compound, ended up saving a bunch of fuel, and has been able to extend the tires and the fuel beyond 12 laps. So again, there's an interesting strategy kind of playing out. Each of the drivers have anywhere from a half a second to a second gap between each other. Of course, with the exception of Kale, who has a substantial lead in the Joker. After 12 laps on the super soft compound, Kale opts to pit. With this big enough of a margin, should be able to fill up the tank a substantial amount and be able to maintain the lead. As Joker actually ended up doing the 1 lap on the mediums, getting that out of the way, therefore handing 2nd position over to Swordsman, who still is on track. 13 laps on the soft compound to start the race. So we have Viper leading Nissan GTR ahead of the Mitsubishi Lancer, Aston Martin Vantage in 4th, 2 GTRs 5th and 6th, Lexus RCF in P7, ahead of 2 Astons and a Viper to round out the top 10, Mitsubishi Lancer with a Jaguar F-Type in 12th, another Lexus RCF in 13th, 14th is an Aston, 15th is a Jaguar, and unfortunately we've already had 1 retirement, that being End in a Nissan GTR. Riding on board with Swordsman on these heavily worn soft compound tires. fixing the slow turn to head up the hill, Swordsman notices that Joker has been catching him. He's going to allow the pass to happen. After all, Swordsman's plan might very well be to come to the pits. And that is the case. So 13 laps on soft. I'm going to go ahead and switch to the racing super soft compound and try and create a gap to the drivers that he was behind at the very start. Going to go ahead and exit the pits. In 7th position, right ahead of Ant and RSX, who are in a heated battle for 8th position. Alright, end of lap 14. Timmy coming into the pits. Gonna go ahead and fill up the tank. We are just shy of the halfway point in this endurance race. Kale leading from Joker. Really good battle going on between the teammates of Dan and Damian Black for that 3rd position. Dan taking the position. Running out the top 5 right now is Kevo. Swordsman in 6th. Ahead of RSX in 7th. Scott Skynet, Stoke, and Timmy round out your top 10. Then we have Ant, Big Ashy, AV, Left Rear Puncture, and Evo Ant rounding out your field. Alright, end of lap 15. So Timmy opted to do the 1 lap on the mediums. And coming into the pits for the 3rd time. End of lap 16. Scott Skynet going to go ahead and pit from P8. End of lap 17. Kevo going to do the same. RSX continuing to stay out, along with Stoke. Relatively close battle between those two. Right, end of lap 18, Swordsman's going to pit off the super softs. And with still about 23 minutes left to play, it might be a little premature to put the mediums on just yet. So Swordsman's actually going to stick to the racing super soft compound. Coming out just behind Stoke. Timmy in a 3-car battle with Ant and RSX for that 8th position. And with just under 17 minutes to go, Joker coming into the pits for possibly the final stop, but we will see. Dan also following suit. And in doing so, that's actually going to allow Swordsman to inherit 3rd position. But not by much. This is certainly going to be a close battle for that final podium position. And despite doing what appears to be a 4-stop strategy, Timmy sitting in P5, ahead of Damian Black and Kevo. Kevo's teammate Big Ashy holding on to P8 by about a half a second ahead of the Viper of Ant. Stoke holding on to 10th as Scott Skynet goes a little bit wide, losing a little bit of ground. Alright, just under 15 minutes left to go. Your leader, Kale, gonna come into the pits. Kale started on the super softs, then did a long stint on the soft tires. Gonna go ahead and put some fuel in and switch to the mediums. As Joker continues to stay out. After a little over 45 minutes, the top two only separated by about 4 seconds, as Dan continues to catch Swordsman for that final podium position. Coming in for the 5th time is actually going to be Timmy, which is going to hand 5th position over to Damian Black, ahead of Kevo in 6th. Out of the pits, Timmy is going to be right ahead of Ant for an intense fight with Stoke hot on their trail for that 7th position. There's a few more drivers coming in for the final pit stop, including Scott Skynet, Big Ashy, making for a superheated battle for that 12th position, as AV is closing the gap on Scott Skynet. Alright, cycling through with just under 11 minutes to go. It appears that Joker is slowly catching Kale. Kale, who's on the medium compound, while Joker is on the super softs. Swordsman gonna come into the pits for his final pit stop, and that's actually going to hand Dan 3rd position, as Swordsman still has to use the medium compound. Let's see if we can see if Damian Black is going to catch Swordsman or not, but so far I think the gap is about 5 seconds between those two. We cycle through. Joker crossing the start-finish line with 30 seconds to go, which means here on lap 30, this will be the final lap, as Joker not only caught Kale, but made an easy pass and easily pulled away. And your winner of Sunday's Division 1, with a quite an interesting strategy, Joker starting 13th on the grid to take the win. Kale, who had a really good launch at the very start, is going to take home 2nd, ahead of Dan in P3 from back on 14th on the grid. And he's going to finish right ahead of Swordsman, with Damian Black, Timmy, Kevo, and Stoke going to round out the top 8. Thank you so much for watching. See you in the next video. Bye.